Hello and welcome to Coding Keywords live class. My name is Dr. Adijo, and today we're going to continue our Introduction to Excel class. And today's module is Module 9, and we're going to be looking at pivot tables and pivot charts. So I'm just going to go straight ahead and share my screen, and we will start the practice. So I just confirmed that I have my screen shared. Yes. All right. So this is Introduction to Excel, and this has been a course that's had like so far 8 modules, and it's a 10 module course, and we're trying to introduce the basics to Excel using our keywords methodology, I would say. So this is a simplified way of learning things in tech, where we just emphasize the keywords, we point you to what you should know, and this makes the learning of tech easy. So far, I'm just going to run through what we have done. We started by looking at Excel interface, data entry, data formatting, basic calculation, and we're able to see that Excel is a software for data handling, and we also appreciate how data is so important to what we do in life. So Excel is a software for data handling, and first we need to bring our data in, and then when we bring our data in, then we need to check the format of our data. And then we saw the importance of the numeric, the dates, the text formats as some of the basic data formats that we use. We also have the Boolean. And then we started with basic calculation, which mostly has to do with our numeric data. And we saw what it means to work with formulas and functions in Excel. Those videos are available on this channel. I want you to view them and check them. If you go through those videos, you should be ready for data analysis, Excel for data analysis or for automation. Okay, and then we moved over to cell references, and we saw the importance of cell references, understanding our cell references for us to work with our formulas and functions well. And we moved over to data organization, and we saw the importance of tables, very important. And then we moved over to logical and conditional functions, and we saw that certain times we need to make decisions based on conditions or based on questions that we need to ask. And we saw how to do that in Excel. And the last time, in Module 8, we looked at dates and text. So remember, we have numeric data, we've got dates, we've got text. So we've covered kind of like the basic data types in Excel. So just for me to emphasize again that Excel is all about data. Okay, so all we've been doing is revolving around how we enter our data, format our data, inspect our data, organize our data, and we're moving over to pivot tables. All right, so today we're going to see what pivot tables are and why they are powerful. We're going to prepare data correctly for pivot tables. And we're going to build a pivot table from scratch. And what are we going to achieve? We're going to see how to summarize large data sets, create and customize our pivot charts, and use our pivot charts to visualize data. We're going to work with filters, sorting, grouping within our pivot tables and pivot charts. And essentially, this module emphasizes summarization, pattern discovery, and dynamic reporting. This is very important. So I'm just going over to the stream to be sure everything is fine. Okay, so this is a very important module when it comes to the features of Excel. So I would say that pivot tables are the most powerful feature in Excel, especially for beginners. And we're going to see why. We're going to see why. Now we've looked at some other tools in Excel so far. We've looked at tables, we've looked at conditional formatting, but so far I would say pivot tables are the most powerful tool. And it's important we learn how to use them. So move over. And this is Excel, and I'm doing my presentation here. And surprisingly, this is also powered by pivot tables as well. Okay, so we're going straight ahead to see what pivot tables are and why they matter. So pivot tables are a tool for summarizing large data sets instantly and a way to answer business questions without formulas. We've seen how to use formulas to probe our data sets to find things like totals or sum, averages, maximum and minimum, and all of that. But with pivot tables, we can do a lot without necessarily using formulas. So it's an easy way to summarize our data set. Why do we need to summarize our data sets? Our data sets could be massive and large, and as they are large and massive with several columns and rows of data, it's difficult to make sense of it at once. So we have to take parts of our data sets, we have to summarize them, probably have to take some columns, we have to do some filtering or sorting, and pivot tables help us do that very, very efficiently. Okay, so pivot tables help replace like our manual totals, repeated sum if, count if formulas, copy paste summaries. So we can do a lot with pivot tables much more easily than if we had to do all these functions. Remember, we did sum if and count if in a previous module. So some of the things we can get from pivot table, say we have our sales data set, we want to find our total sales by region or average revenue by product or count of transactions per month, which will begin to give us very, very useful insights about our data. We can do that using pivot tables. Pivot tables are powerful and they have lots and lots of benefits, which we're going to see. Now, let's look at some of the rules. When we're using our pivot tables, we should have one header row, no blank rows or columns, consistent data types, and no merge cells. And yes, so for the best practice, we convert our data to an Excel table before creating our pivot tables. Okay, some of the things that happen when we have poor structure is we have missing fields, incorrect totals, broken pivot charts. So this should be avoided by us having our data cleaned and setting up our data as a table. All right, so we're going straight to the exercise, and I'm just going to go to the stream to be sure that everything is fine. Sound is okay. I'm still sharing. And okay, so I'm back. So we've got our data sets. We have data set 9A, and I'm just going to copy it. This is international sales transactions. So I'm copying it, bringing it over to a presentation sheet. And here we have it. So these are data sets, those transactions. And we're going to follow the best practice. So the best practice is that we're going to convert our data set into, so I'm just adjusting the columns. And in our data organization, we saw the importance of tables. So I'm just going to select the entire data set and I go over to insert and then I click on pivot, and then I click on table. Yeah, so first of all, we set our data set as a table before we start creating pivot tables. Okay, so once I click on that, this dialog box comes up and then verifying the range. My table has headers. Yes, I have my first row as headers, and then I click on OK, and this is my data set as a table. All right, so this is the header and this is the data. All right, so our first task is to create a pivot table showing total revenue by region and format the revenue as currency. So these are data sets. We've got the transaction ID column, we've got the dates, we've got the region, we've got country, we've got products, we've got category, and we've got revenue. So what we have here is that we have different products that were sold in regions, and then we have the revenue here or the amount here. And these are data sets. So this is a data set of about 22 rows. So we've got, in practice, you can have data sets with thousands of rows, tens of thousands of rows, massive data sets. So you would appreciate the importance of a tool like a pivot table in such massive data sets. But we're going to see how we can do it using this simple data set here. Okay, so we are to create a pivot table showing the total revenue by region. Total revenue by region. All right. So click anywhere inside the data set. Okay, so just click anywhere inside the data set and then go to insert tab, and then pivot table. Yes, so pivot table, and this dialog box comes, and we have this first of here, this first field here showing us the name of our table or range that is selected. So this is table 3. And do we want our pivot table in a new worksheet or an existing worksheet? So I'm going to choose new worksheet. I'm going to choose new worksheet. So I go with new worksheet and I just click OK. So a new sheet has been created. So a new sheet has been created. Over here is where my pivot table is going to be. And then over here, I have the pivot table fields or where I can control it. So now because my the video of my face is just around here covering some parts of the pivot table fields, I'm going to move this. Okay, so let me see how to move it. Move, okay. So yes, I'm just going to move this and kind of expand it, okay. So this would usually be somewhere snapped at the right, but we're having it here. Okay, so have it here. This should be fine. I'm just going to go over to the stream to be sure that still sharing and my sound is fine. And then we're here. Okay, so do well to like this video, do well to share it, and do well to send your comments so that we'll get how we can serve you best. All right, so our task, go back, our task 3 here. These are pivot table fields here. And what happens is all the columns in our data sets are going to be available for us here. So we've got all the columns here, 4 areas for us to build our pivot table. We have the filters, we have the rows, we have the columns, we have the values. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we want to take the revenue, we want to see the total revenue by region. Okay, so this is the region column. And in this region column, we want to see for each of the regions available, we want to see the sum of the revenue or the total revenue. This would be helpful in understanding our data sets. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the text column. So the region is the text column. I'm going to drag the text column to this row section. So you see, I just dragged it. And there you go. You see, my pivot table is building up here. And instantly, I'm able to see all the categories, all the categories in the region column. So this is what we have. And then I'm going to drag the numeric column, which is revenue, to values. And this is it here. This is it here. Okay, so this has summarized the data set. So let's look at the data sets. This is the data set. It's kind of massive. What I've done is I've gone to this region column and exploited the categories. So you've got Europe repeated, you've got Asia repeated, and all of that. So what the pivot table has helped me do is summarize the different categories in the region column, and it has summed up the revenue for each of them. And this is what we have very nicely here. So this is how you build a pivot table. So you see the text column, I placed it in the rows, and then in the values area, I dragged a numeric column and instantly it gave me the sum of the revenue. Okay, so now clicking on this drop down here and clicking on value field settings shows the different ways I can summarize the value field. So I have the sum, we have count, we have average. So if I want to find the average revenue per region, I just click on average and click on OK, and you see it's updated here. So this is the average of the revenue. So I can change it. I can find the count, which is how many entries I have for each region. And that's what I have here. Okay, so you see, with just simple clicks, I'm able to do a lot of exploration of my data sets using the pivot tables. No formulas and nothing really complex. Okay, so let's see what to do next. So format revenue as currency. So I can come over to my pivot table and just like I would format any column, I can select this and I go to home and I can select currency, and that is done. All right. Um, so yes, so we've got the rows, the columns, the values, and the filters. We've seen that these are in the pivot tables field pane. Um, rows, columns, values, and filters. And then, yes, the fields are draggable like we saw, and changes can be done live. Pivot tables are interactive and not static. So you looked at the value calculation, sum, count, average. We can also find the max and mean without using formulas. Uh, and then we can see how to do formatting. Yes, we just looked at how to do formatting um, as currency. Now, these are some of the common beginner mistakes when you confuse count with sum. So what's the difference between count and sum? So when we're using count, when we're counting, we're trying to find how many entries. But when using sum, we are adding the numeric, um, when we're adding on a numeric column. Okay, so we can come over to the region, and so we want to count how many times Europe occurs in the data set. So we'll be counting one, two, three, 4, 5, okay? But then we can also come over to the revenue column and say we want to sum up the number of entries for Europe. And so we'll be saying 4,500 plus 2,200 and so on and so forth. So we need to know when it's more appropriate for us to use a count or when it's more appropriate for us to use the sum in the analysis. Okay, so what's happening is this is usually the first step in data analysis. After we have cleaned our data, we want to explore, we want to investigate the large data set by taking out smaller portions, summarizing and exploiting the categories in our data set. So pivot tables is usually the first thing we would do. And that's why I say it's the most powerful tool. All right, so we can go a step further by showing the revenue by region and products, and also to identify the highest performing product per region. I'm just going to do a quick check in the stream to be sure everything is fine. And yes. All right. So to show the revenue by region and products. So to do that, I'm going to have another pivot table. So I can create another pivot table in this sheet by selecting the previous pivot table, copying it, and pasting it. So I pasted it there, and then I'm just going to press escape. So this one is no more selected, and I'm working on this one. And this one, let me deselect the region and deselect revenue. So I'm just going to start building it from the scratch. So let me drag this somewhere here. Okay, so now we are going to see how we can investigate our data set this time by looking at not just the region in terms of total revenue, but region and product. So remember, these are international sales data set. So we're going to now pick region and product, and we're going to inspect our data set based on the revenue. So one thing I'll highlight here is that in the first case, we're just taking region and revenue. It looked like just two dimensions, just like a simple layer. Now we're taking region, region column, the products column, and the revenue. So it's more like 3 dimensions. So we're going to just pick these columns and work with them. So we're picking the text columns, which is region and products, and then we're going to have within our pivot table the revenue as our data, which is the numeric column. All right, so we'll take region. So I'm just going to drag the region down to the rows, and I'm going to drag products to the columns. So just watch as it builds. Just watch as it builds, okay? And so we've got all these products here. So it's kind of stretching. I'm still trying to avoid this area here because this is where my face is. So this is it. And then I'm going to go over to pick the revenue, and I'm bringing it up here. So the revenue is usually sum by default, and sum is what we want to work with. So I'm just going to drag this down, and this is our pivot table. So now we're able to see at a glance the region and the spread of the products. and investigate that using total revenue. Okay, so here we can see that the desktop has just an entry for the Asia region, and this is the total here. And let's look at laptop here. So we can see for laptop, we've got entries for Americas, Europe, Middle East, Oceania. We can see the totals, and then we can see the totals over here. Now I'm going to do something. Going to see how we can format the presentation of our pivot table. So let me come over to this first pivot table that we did, and I can just click anywhere in this sum of revenue column, and then I right click, and then I have this option to sort. So I can sort it from largest to smallest. You see, so you can also sort. You've got several options. Okay, so we've got different ways to summarize values. We can change that here. We can do a lot of formatting. So there's something I want to highlight once again. We've seen that when we're working with tables, and is the fact that when you've got an additional um, tool or feature in your sheet, there's usually an additional tab. So for example, I'm clicking on the cell, and you see my tabs are from home to Power Pivot. Power Pivot is my last tab here. And the moment I click on the pivot table, you see I have two more tabs. So I've got the pivot table analyze, and you can come over here, change the settings, adjust a whole lot of things. And you've got more features to work with. You can change the design. Okay, so let's go back to this. Yes, this is our pivot table, and let's compare this with our data set. So these are data set here. Data set has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 columns. And what we've decided to do is just take two, the region and sorry, three, region, product, and revenue, and do some investigation. So here we're able to observe and see that we don't actually have um, sales for each product to each region. We don't even have any region that has sales for all the products. So you see, we begin to explore our data, we begin to understand our data when we take advantage of tools like our pivot tables. Okay, so finally, before we move over to pivot charts, I'm going to do one more pivot table. So I'm going to copy this. Um, okay, so I'm going to paste it down. I'm not sure. Now, if I paste it here, if I paste it here, and the pivot table I want to build would have several data that will go down and interfere with this one, I'm going to have an issue. So I'm just going to paste it down here, so I don't have any issues with space. So like I did before, I'm just going to remove the region. And okay, what I want to do now is just add the dates. So I'm just going to drag the dates over here, and there you go. So this is a pivot table with the dates. Okay, so you see a lot of times you want to move to the rows area, either text or dates, and you want to keep in the values area your numeric data. So now we're able to see the sum of revenue across different dates. So it has been grouped. So you see the date has been grouped into years, quarters, months. This is very helpful. And then I can expand, you see, I can see the sales um, across the different quarters in 2024 and 2025. And this gives very good summary that can help you understand my data set very well. So we've got three pivot tables here. So far, so good. So let's go back to our lesson. And let me just go back to the stream to be sure that everything is fine, my sound, and I'm still sharing. Okay, so let's move to the next lesson. Okay, so pivot table operations, we can filter by category, we can do sorting, largest to smallest. We've seen that we can use reports. We can group dates by month, quarter, year. We can also group our numeric ranges. We've seen the grouping. And group the revenue, yes, by month, yes, and then regroup by quarter. And then grouping is where pivot tables become analytical. Right. Now we're moving over to pivot charts. And we're going to see how we can create pivot charts. Now, let's look at the progression. We had our data sets. When we set up our data set as a table, we were given these filters. And remember, we can check the filters and see, um, investigate different columns and see the categories, can check and see the dates and all of that, inspect the regions and all of that. So filtering is like first layer of inspection using the filters. We should be familiar with this already. And then beyond the filters, we can go to another layer, what we have seen using the pivot tables. Okay, so we've seen the pivot tables, and the pivot table comes with much more than the filter. Comes with the filtering. We can do summaries. With the pivot tables, we can combine columns. So when we're doing our filters on our data set, we are filtering on a single column. You see, or filtering on a single column. We're just inspecting a single column. For example, we can go to country and see, we want to find out all the different countries, country categories in the country column. So filtering is on a single column. Pivot table is on more than one column. So it's another layer. Okay, so it's another layer. And then we can take two columns like we did here. We took the region and the revenue. Over here, we took region, product, and revenue. And that's what the pivot table is about. But it's still a table. It's still a table. So we can move a step further in terms of how we inspect our data or explore it by using our pivot charts. So we're going to see how to create pivot charts from our pivot tables. So the pivot chart is a visual representation of the pivot table, and they update as the pivot table changes. We're going to see that. And so we're going to create a pivot chart from our existing pivot table by, okay, so we can create a pivot chart from our existing pivot table or create it from or directly from data. So we've got different charts. We've got the column, the bar, the line, and the pie. We're going to see a few of them. And so we're going to see how to convert our revenue by region pivot table into a column pivot chart, and then we're going to change it into a bar chart, and we're going to compare. So this is a revenue by region pivot table. So I'm just going to keep this somewhere here. Okay, so this is revenue by region. And then how do we set up a pivot? I said whenever you are selecting the pivot table, you've got this for you to work with. So I click on pivot table analyze, and you see this pivot chart here. So you can just select pivot charts. Oh, so I've got different types of charts. So this is the column charts. And so we're going to compare the column chart and the bar chart. I just click on OK. And so this is a column chart. So we're able to see nicely a visual representation of this pivot table. So we have the, and then we have their revenue sums here. So we can see the highest is the Middle East, and we can see the spread. We can adjust our pivot charts, so we can edit, can click on this, choose to remove the axis, and choose to remove the title, maybe to create, okay, we can put the axis titles, we can remove the chart title, want to create a bit more space. We can remove the axis and then put our data labels this way. We can do all kinds of things. And then we can even decide to remove some of these other filters by coming over to this pivot chart analyze and then removing all of this. Okay, so remove all of this, and then we've got a pivot chart like this. We can also adjust several other things like make the width of the bars bigger. So this is a pivot chart, and we can even go further to do a bit more formatting of the design. For example, I can select this bar and I can change the color. I can change the color. So there's a whole lot we can do. This is usually the first step for us to build dashboards. Okay, so this is our pivot charts, and let's see how we can set this up as a bar chart. Okay, so I'm going to click on the pivot table, and then pivot table analyze, pivot chart. And instead of a column chart, I'm going to do a bar chart. And this is what it looks like. So this is the bar chart, and resize it. And this is the column chart. So let me know in the comment section which you prefer. This is the column chart, and this is the bar chart. Okay, so that's like a simple chart. And let me just check in the stream just to be sure everything is fine. And now you see that it's not difficult to analyze your data sets. It's not difficult to analyze your data sets. With a few clicks, you can have your pivot table. Okay. With a few clicks, you can have your pivot table that gives you very good summary and helps you to begin to understand your data sets. I mean, looking at the whole data sets, this is just about 22 rows. It's already a bit overwhelming. What happens if you have like 10,000 rows? It can be so overwhelming. So what you have to do is just start creating pivot tables, and you begin to understand your data set. Now, beyond the pivot table, you can also have this nice looking pivot charts. And there you begin to see a picture, an image that shows you the picture or the story of your data set in a more visual manner. All right. So let's see. Pivot charts stay linked to pivot tables. We're going to investigate that. And we can change the chart types, okay? Like we saw, we created the bar chart. We can also change the chart types, and we can edit the chart titles, format the axes, remove unnecessary chart elements like we saw. And these are best practice. Number one message per chart, and then have clear titles and have consistent scales. Okay, so once you create your chart, then you can start formatting it for it to look presentable and for it to be easy for those who see your charts to understand what you're communicating. Pivot charts are preferred over regular charts for analysis. Now, pivot tables do not auto update. We have to refresh, and then we have refresh, and we have refresh. Oh, we're going to see that. And then we're going to see what happens when new rows are added. And yes, so that's an overview. So let's go, let's do a few updates. All right, so we go from Europe, Asia, Oceania. Now I'm going to do something. I'm going to come and I'm going to add a new transaction. So I make this 2023, um, 2020, 2023. And then let me say this is 19th of June, 2026. Yes, and then for the region, I'm going to make this Africa, and then let me add Ghana. I don't think there's any Ghana there. And then for Ghana, I'm going to say monitor, and monitor is electronics. Yes, and then I'm going to say 2500. So I have a new entry. Now let's see what happens. Um, so I'm going to the pivot table, and okay, I still have this total 76,800. Now let me go back to my data sets and check. Can easily inspect the total here. The sum is 79,300. So you see what has happened is I have updated my table, but my pivot table has not been updated. And as well, the chart too has not been updated. So how do you update your pivot table and pivot chart when you have added a new entry to your data set? So what you do is you can just click on your pivot table, and then we go to pivot table analyze, and then refresh. Okay, so I can click on this drop down, and I'm just going to refresh all, meaning I'm going to refresh all pivot tables and all pivot charts. And so that's what I've done. And you see it has been updated. So it's now 79,300. And the chart has been updated as well. So that should be an increment in Africa. So let me, so Africa now is 10,400. So let me come over here and then take this monitor here, and then let me make it 12. Let me make it 120,500. Back, this is still 10,400. So just watch this 10,400. And then I'm going to come here and do my refresh and refresh all. So this is 10,400, and also be watching Africa. So Africa 10,400. This is Africa. Okay. So and then I do refresh all, and there you go. So Africa is now the highest. You can see. So it's updated. So this is how to refresh the pivot table after you have made updates in the data set. And we can see that this reflects in the chart as well. So we're going to investigate a few other things as it has to do with our pivot table. And so what we're going to investigate is the filters. We're going to investigate the filters. And so what I'm going to do is let me take, okay, so I'm just still going to work with these data sets. And I'm going to take an additional column here. Remember, these are the columns of my data set, and I'm just going to push the, let's say, category now, and I'm taking it to the filter. So I push the category here, and you see that for my pivot table here, I have this filter up there. So let me deselect it. You see it's off, and then I push the category to the filters area, and then you see it's here. So I'm just going to do a quick check in the stream, okay, just to be sure that I'm still fine. And so you see, this is what I have. So I've got an extra filter to filter my pivot table, and all the categories within this category, which has to do with the categories of the products, right, will be available for me to use to filter on the pivot table. So I can come over here, and this is what I want. Remember, this pivot table is already giving me the revenue by region, the revenue by region. So I want to go a step further to say, I want to see the revenue by region for just electronics. So I click on electronics and I click on OK, and there you go. This is what it looks like. The revenue by region for just electronics is giving me this. Okay, so I'm just pushing this here. And then let's see. I can say I want just for office products, and there you go. You see my pivot table is changing, and I'm able to explore my data set and understand it a bit better. And I can say I just want for accessories, and there you go. You can see what's happening. It's becoming interactive. I'm able to explore these massive data sets here using my pivot table, and by considering what's of interest to me. So I don't necessarily need to see all the data to me. Assuming I want the accessories and electronics alone, you see what's happening. You see what's happening. Okay, is using the pivot tables, the pivot charts, and the filters. Now I'm just going to add one more discussion, and that would be showing the slicers. Slicers. So we've looked at simple filters on tables, we've looked at pivot tables, we've looked at pivot charts, we've looked at filters on pivot tables and pivot charts, and now we're going to look at um, slicers. Okay, so over here, we've got a pivot table that shows the total revenue by year or by dates or by time. Yes, we can check it by quarter, can check it by month and all of that. So this is what we have, total revenue by year. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to create a chart here. So select this, and then I have the charts. Okay, so I'm just going to go to cluster charts. Okay, so I have a cluster chart here. Okay, step further, I'm going to add a slicer. So slicer is like a general filter that applies across all the pivot tables, can apply across several pivot tables and charts in a sheet. So I just need to click on the pivot table, come over to pivot table and analyze, and there's a slicer there. So I insert the slicer. So let me insert a slicer for region and a slicer for products. So I've got two slicers here. It's the product slicer and this is the region slicer. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to select, okay, so now I'm just going to be selecting and filtering off my slicer to see the effect. So now I've selected only Africa, and this is what I'm having. Okay, so this is the information on my pivot table and my pivot chart just for Africa. This is for Americas. So you see it's changing. This is for Asia. This is for Europe. Okay, as it's changing, this slicer is also changing. So they are linked. So you see, I can come over here and just set it such that, so I'm going to do the slicer setting such that it's going to hide items without data. And there you go. So this is the slicer. And then this is the pivot charts. So I'm just going to reduce this size. So you can see what's happening. All right, so I've got Americas. So you see, Middle East total is 17,300. Oceania total is 8,000. And we can see that there. For Oceania, we've got keyboard, laptop, and monitor. For Africa, we've got monitor, printer, and tablets. We can see the charts there. We can see the total. And then we can adjust our slicer settings so that we can have more than one. So here we have Africa and Europe. That's the total there. These are the products. We can add the Middle East. We can remove Europe. We can remove Africa. And we want to see the Middle East, Asia, Europe. So there you go. So these are slicers. These are pivot table. These are pivot charts. And we have seen what I call the most powerful feature of Excel. So you see, it's kind of endless in terms of time. Okay. So basically, we've seen how powerful pivot tables are, charts, and the slicers as well. Okay, so let's wrap up. So we saw how to add a slicer, filter the pivot charts using slicers. Slicers, I think the slicers um, we added slicers, products, yes, products and region on our that had the dates. Okay, so you can add all kinds of slicers. I want to also remind you that in the link in the comments, um, you're going to get access to the data set. So the data set will be available for download on Google Drive, just like in the other modules. Um, Okay, so you can begin to ask questions from your data. Which region generates the most revenue? Which product performs best globally? Which month has the highest sales? Okay, so you begin to ask questions, you begin to explore your data, you begin to do analysis when you use pivot tables. Now, common mistakes to avoid: creating pivot tables from poorly structured data. So if your data set is not clean and is not structured properly, you're going to have issues with your data state, with your pivot table. And then editing. Now, do not edit your pivot tables manually. Yes, do not come here to edit it, because these pivot tables are created from the data set. Okay, so don't edit your pivot table manually. Don't come and start editing it or changing the values. No, you have to change the values in the data set and then refresh like we saw. And then now using regular charts instead of pivot chart. So use your pivot chart because it's linked up with the pivot table, and then always updated. Okay, so for the recap, today we saw how to build pivot tables confidently, and how to summarize large pivot tables. We saw how to create and customize pivot charts and prepare analytical visuals for dashboards. Okay, so we can begin to build our dashboards. We can begin to create a more visually appealing story about our data by taking our charts, editing them, improving on them, and also we could have some pivot tables as well. And then we can build a very nice story about our data set. So we understand the progression. We've got this data set. This data set like this, it can be cumbersome, it can be difficult on the eye, it can be boring, complex. So what do? We begin to take parts of it. So you've got your massive data set and you say, okay, I want to investigate over time. I want to look at the dates and see happening. Okay, in which month did I have the highest sales? In which year did I have the highest sales? What it means is you've got your data set, you're going to ask a lot of questions from your data set. You can pick the region and say, okay, which region had the highest sales? Which one had the smallest? What's the average? Lots of questions. When you are faced with your data set so massively like that, it's difficult. It's difficult to make sense. So what do? You begin to take portions of it. You can say, I'm taking the region column and I'm going to take the revenue column and I'm going to do an exploration of it to understand the patterns, to see what's happening. I can take region and I can add country, or say I can add products and revenue. So I can take revenue, product, and region and investigate. So what happens is I can keep the region on the rows, exploit the categories, push the product to the columns, and see the spread, and then have my revenue binding or mix or joining them together for my analysis. And that was what we had on pivot table here. So we had the regions, we had the products, and inside we had the revenue helping us do. And you see, we began to see that not all regions had the products, and not all products had all the regions. So we begin to understand was more interested in, say, the monitor or the headphones, and so on and so forth. So you see how pivot tables are so powerful. This is very helpful for analysis. And that brings us to the end of this module. In our next module, we're going to be looking at lookup and reference functions, and that's module 10. So that would cover our introduction to Excel, and essentially giving us the very basics of Excel that we need for other things like data analysis, automation, and all of that. So far, so good. It's been wonderful. I've got very good feedback from people who have watched the videos, and many have become better at understanding Excel. So I'd encourage you to go over the videos in this series. So it's in this playlist. They're all in the playlist. So if you explore this YouTube channel, this is coding keywords. Explore it, and then you'll be able to see the different modules, starting from Excel introduction, Excel interface, all the way to data entry, data formatting, basic calculations, references, dates and times, data organization. These are the basics of Excel. These are mostly what you need to master Excel. So this is Coding Keywords. I am Dr. Adejo. I'm the lead instructor, and in this channel, we break down, tech, all those complex tech stuff. We break it down by showing you the keywords, by showing you the best way to learn. So whether it's the technical part of tech, like learning Python, learning JavaScript, um, learning programming, learning Java, or whether it's areas like analysis, like machine learning or data analysis, or learning Excel or SQL. We have it covered for you, and we are progressively bringing out our videos. And whether it's also the design areas like Canva, we also show you how to learn it in a simple way. So I want you to stay connected to the channel. I want you to like this video, like it so the others get to see and learn. And the whole concept of Excel and data analysis and all of that will be demystified. I also want you to write comments. So I want comments. I want to know what you have learned. I want you to have you ask questions there, which I will answer. And I want you to subscribe as well. I want you to subscribe, and I want you to share. So stay connected. Apart from this platform, which is on YouTube, we also have other platforms. So if you check the comments, check the pinned comment, you will see links to join our WhatsApp group. So we have a WhatsApp group where you can join and connect with us. We have more resources for you there. We also have a Telegram channel. Yes, so we do trainings on Telegram as well. So stay connected, and get the data set that we used, check the Google Drive link, download the data set, practice it on your own, stay connected. We're here on Coding Keywords, and we have lots and lots of resources. So see you in the next video. Bye.